Come sit down, bud.
All right.
All right. Number one piece of advice is don't make it weird. My first podcast, I made it so weird.
Just have a conversation.
Yeah. All right. How's everybody doing? It's 7 a.m. I'm here with Josh
Borgelt.
Borgelt.
You got it, buddy.
Yeah. My first time pronouncing it right. We're here to talk about his testimony and also just have a good time talking with a bud.
Absolutely.
So, Josh, you want to introduce yourself to people?
Yeah. I'm Josh. I'm a senior in high school. I just got baptized probably like a month ago. And I was raised Christian my whole life, and I never really took it to heart, I guess. And like I only started really like getting into it when my good friend, his name is Michael, he goes to Oxford.
Okay.
We played baseball together, and he kind of introduced this idea to me of lukewarm faith. And at first I was like, shut up, like I don't care about what you're saying, like. And at times, like, I feel like lukewarm Christianity like a lot of the time is just based on like lack of faith in general. Like, you can't see God, like, so you can get away with it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's exactly what I was doing. And then, he kept on bringing it up. He never quit. And eventually, like, it kind of resonated with me, and I started, researching more. I started reading my Bible. I started praying a little bit more. And I wouldn't say by any means that I was sanctified at all, because I was still definitely living in my sin and living for the world. But I was definitely starting to pay more attention to what I was doing. And about, I want to say, so last school year, so last September of 23, I started to get way more into it. And I went through a relationship that I feel like for all the wrong reasons brought me closer to God. More so because I was trying to help somebody else, and not, like, I wasn't really practicing what I was preaching. And that was like I feel like that was detrimental to the relationship, if I'm going to be honest. And I felt terrible about the way I was treating this person. And that brought me a little bit closer, and it was moving along, and I was still constantly living in sin. I was drinking, I was smoking all the time, and I was just living for the world. I didn't care. I didn't really care about, I guess I would say I cared a little bit about God, but he definitely wasn't my main priority.
Yeah.
And so at that point, I was at an all-time low, and I was driving home from baseball practice one night, and I was crying, and I was very, I just felt lost, and I felt this yearning for God. So I stopped at a church right by my house, who I'm very thankful for to this day. And I walked in, and I just asked to talk to a pastor. And I talked to this pastor. His name's Caleb. He's a great guy. And we just had this really fulfilling conversation for, like, I'd say an hour. And I left, I went home feeling so fulfilled and like, yes, like I finally have the answer. And then I messed it up probably 10 minutes after I got home, just trying to be a wise guy and talk to my girlfriend. And, it just goes to show how quickly things can go wrong, like when you let your pride take over. And then at that point, I started attending church very regularly, and I started to turn away from my sin a little bit more, and I was smoking less. Smoking was a really big problem for me. I was very, I don't know the exact word, but I smoked all the time. I quit smoking probably, what was that? That was when I went to that church, that was probably in December. It was probably in December. Right. And I quit smoking probably in February. And I was just attending church regularly, and they have this thing called 707, which I know you know of.
Yep.
And the group of guys, it's basically like a youth group, and the group of guys were just so welcoming, and it was really nice to have a relatable group of people for once. Like a lot of the things I was struggling with, they were struggling with too, and it was just a great opportunity to build community, and I still love it to this day, and I don't think there's anything better for someone who's trying to practice the faith in the world than community. And so I was going to that regularly, and through talks that I had, like one special person, his name's McCade, and he was one of our youth group leaders, so like he would get the conversation started. And the very first time I met him, we had like a very emotional, personal conversation about Jesus. And, like he was like, I definitely feel that, McCade was put in my life for a reason, because he's just a great dude. And through talks I had with him and Pastor Caleb, I just kept on getting further and further down this path. And still today, by no means am I close to what I'd like to be, but I definitely improved a lot from then. And then there was a baptism night at 707, and I remember watching it, and I was just like, wow, this is beautiful. Like this is beautiful, watching these people testify about something they love so much. I want to do this. Like I really want to do this. So we set it up. We had another baptism night a month ago. I got baptized. I shared my testimony with the whole church, and it was sweet. It was a beautiful moment for me, and it was definitely probably top one night of my life. And it was just a beautiful experience. And right now I'm at a place where something important that I've learned along the way is that sanctification is a lifelong process.
Yeah.
And we're always going to fall short, because that's our nature. And it's definitely a tough pill to swallow, like especially when you're wanting to get from point A to point B, and there's just a wall like right there. Like you can't, no matter how much you want to be like this perfect person, you never can.
Yeah.
And it's hard, because you mess up, and then like you beat yourself up over it, and that's not what Jesus calls us to do. He calls us to take up our cross and follow him, and that's a tough thing as a Christian, to just be able to accept the fact that we're not good enough, and we're in desperate need of a savior. It's so humbling as a person just to say, like, I need this person. Like, there's very few situations in the world where you can just say, I need this person. I need something. Like, that level of humility and just like yearning and need it's not something you find very often, and I think it's very humbling.
Yeah, so a couple of things that you touched on that I like, three key points of what you just said was, one, the lukewarm faith. And I think you made a good point, which was lukewarm faith sometimes means you don't really believe it.
Yeah.
And I think I struggled with that like around a year or two ago. Like, did I really believe in it? Did I really think that if I don't do these things, I'm going to go to hell and be separated from Jesus? The second thing you said was community. And that's one of the reasons I started this, kind of, was to have deep conversations. Because outside of youth group, there's not many chances you have to actually have a deep conversation with people. And I thought just keeping all your thoughts to yourself just doesn't help you with your relationship with Jesus.
Yeah.
And third was your baptism. Something that was really impressive to me is I'm sure everybody's great people that were getting baptized that night, and that everybody loves them. But when you went up there was so many more people came down to congratulate you, which I think is a good testament to how much you've changed, and you seem like a very energetic and caring person.
Yeah.
So I wanted to, first of all, congratulate you on that.
Thank
that was
you.
very impressive.
Thank you.
Coming down and seeing, like, I would say 50 people coming to say hi to you. And that's very impressive. But before we do that, I want to maybe lighten the mood a little bit. I have a little bit of a game I call This or That.
Oh, okay.
So I'm going to give you a Bible this or that.
All right, here we go.
I'm going to list them off, and you can't think about it. All you have to do is say which one you pick, okay?
All right, here we go.
All right, Old Testament or New Testament?
New Testament.
New Testament. Noah or Jonah?
Noah.
David or Solomon?
David.
The kingdom of Judah or the kingdom of Israel?
Israel.
All right, ready?
Yeah.
Youth group on Sunday, or no, youth group on Wednesday or Sunday mornings?
Oh, youth group on Wednesday. I'm
Youth
sorry.
group, personal Bible study or a sermon?
I love a personal Bible study.
Yeah, me too. All right, now I'm going to have you explain yourself. Why are you choosing youth group over Sunday? I think I'm
Come
with you, by the
on.
way.
Don't put me on the spot
I'm
like
with you.
this. Sunday service. I'm very grateful to have an amazing pastor. His name's John Morales.
Mm-hmm.
He does all the Sundays at our church. He has like a PhD in theology. Like
He's a smart guy.
Yeah, you can tell he's very cerebral, like in his demeanor.
Cerebral, what?
Yeah.
That's a good word. What does that mean?
It's like he's all there. Like he
Dude.
thinks about it.
That's a good word.
Absolutely. And he's just very put together, and his mannerisms, like it's just fun to listen to him. And he gives great messages, and whenever I need to pick me up, like it's always there, and I always feel like God uses him to speak to me. But youth group, man, like just that group of guys, like, and the worship is definitely elevated at youth group. Like on Sunday service, like you get up, you stand, you know, you can throw up your hands, whatever. Nothing gets like crazy.
Yeah.
But youth group, like you put on like just an absolute banger of a song. Like there is a mosh pit in front of the stage of just all these people who are on fire for Jesus, and like nothing gets you hyped up more than that. Like there's no judgment passed whatsoever.
Yeah.
You can do whatever you want. Like you're there, everyone's there for the same reason, and you can just let yourself go, and you, like I don't know, it's just beautiful.
Right?
Yeah, it's great. But
Right.
yeah,
I'm
I
with
love
you
youth
on
group.
that. Youth group's really fun,
Yeah.
especially when you have a good group of people to deal with.
Absolutely.
All right, so let's start talking about lukewarm faith, first of all.
Okay.
So lukewarm faith, I think, I've never heard anybody say that, but I think I agree with you 100%. If you have lukewarm faith, you haven't really fully grasped it, and you truly don't believe it.
Yeah.
So first of all, why do you say that? And then have you experienced that in the past year or two?
Oh yeah, I experience it, I'd say 3 days out of the week. It's hard, like you can't, unless you look really hard, you can't see God. You can't audibly hear God. You have a book, a great series of 66 books,
Yep.
written 2,000 years ago. You can read about the incarnation of the invisible God. You can read about Jesus, but you can't see God the Father, and it's tough because, you know, humans are very visual people, I'd say, and unless you can see it, unless you can touch it, it's hard to know if it's really there.
Yeah.
If you can't see something and you're not like fully sold on it, like why would you listen to this book from 2,000 years ago? Like why would you? But once you start to, I feel like for me, like looking right now, like the world is a beautiful place, and you look at like some of the, like America, I especially believe, is just very diverse, like in the way,
Yeah.
like the geology of it, and like just the way it looks, and it's just beautiful. And once you start to really look, you can see God. You can see God in places that you wouldn't expect. Like my mom, like little side story. My
Wait, one
mom.
second.
All
Do you
right.
want to... Oh, no, you're good.
Is it on?
All right, yeah, keep
All
going.
right, but my mom, she has a dahlia garden. Dahlias are this type of flower, and they get really big, and there's like thousands of different like species of them, and there's just this beautiful flower. And sometimes I'll help my mom cut through the garden. We cut them, we put them in vases, and we leave them on the side of the road. I'll help my mom go through the garden and cut the flowers, and I'm just looking at some of them, and all of them are so different, and they're so beautiful. And I'm like how is this possible? Like how I don't know exactly the way to, you know, manipulate the words, but I'm like, there, like, I feel like for me, seeing God is seeing the beauty of the world around us, and hearing God is reading the gospel.
So I was working on an essay for a speech I'm doing later this month about how to worship in your everyday life. And that's one of the things I wrote down is appreciation. And one of the actions I use and how you can do that in your everyday life is what I call sitting and soaking,
Oh yeah,
which is just like we will never be able to fully grasp creation. Like even looking at this water,
yeah,
looking at how like these trees grow for like
yeah.
this
Like
tree
what?
has been here for probably 100 years,
Yeah,
and we're just such a finite yet God's most important creation.
yeah,
I think that really helps with your connection with God. Just wondering how it's all possible and how humans are fully incapable of doing any of that.
exactly. Like I wouldn't even know where to start. Like look at this plant behind you. Look at that. Like what? How am I gonna make that?
That's living.
Yeah, like out of what? What am I gonna make that out of? I
Well,
don't.
no, yeah,
Exactly. But
that's
like,
crazy.
the thing is like you said, like sitting and soaking. I've never used that verbiage before.
Yeah,
I like it.
little alliteration.
Yeah, but like sometimes, like after I've had a bad night or something, I'll go out and I'll sit on my patio and I'll look at the woods. Like I'll sit there and I'll close my eyes and I'll listen to the birds and I'll see if I can hear like, I don't even know, like a little footstep from like a rabbit or something, and like I'll
Birds
just,
chirping.
yeah, exactly. I'll try and be mindful. I feel like being mindful is very important. And not even in Christianity, it's just a good practice to be mindful all the time.
What do you mean by being mindful?
Like,
Like, give me a one sentence definition.
don't let time pass you up.
Okay.
Like, I was having a conversation with a close friend recently, and he was feeling like, you know, he's not really there. Like everything's just going so fast, and he's not there for any of it. And I was telling him like, you gotta like, as much as it's good, you gotta quit planning so much. Like you need to live in the moment. And you need to look around you and see what's happening and see how beautiful like the experiences that you're having are, and appreciate, you know, the subtle nuances of conversation and the subtle nuances of, you know, a personal relationship with somebody, and the subtle nuances of the world around us. Like if you look hard, you can appreciate so many more things, and it's very gratifying once you look through that other lens to just to look at the world around us.
Yeah, I agree. You're very smart, by the way. I didn't realize you were this smart.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome. All right, let's move on from lukewarm. Does a good community really affect your relationship with God?
Absolutely. I can't remember what. Oh, absolutely, I remember what it was. Iron sharpens iron, and that's biblical. And I feel like a feeling that I had when I went to this new youth group. At first, like I was like a little skittish because like I didn't know any of these people.
Yep.
And then I started to I started to get more comfortable. I started to realize like these are just a cool group of dudes. Like we're all here for the same reason. And like at the beginning of, we call them life groups. That's just when
Yep.
we go and sit down and talk about the message that the main pastor gives us. I found that at the beginning, like we're just talking, like we're